has its second location, adding to their longtime location in Eureka. They'll receive a $200 gift certificate good at Lincoln Printers and Sign Designs for being our WHOW WEZC Lincoln Printers Business of the Month. Nominate a business you like featured by emailing us at whow@randyradio.com.
Congratulations to this local business for all they do for the community. And don't forget, for envelopes, wedding invitations, signs, banner wraps, and more, go to LincolnPrintersInc.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools. Good morning, Mrs. Vogt. How are you today?
Good morning, Seth. I'm great. How are you on this beautiful Friday?
I am not as good as you. You are on Friday number 2 of your summer break. I walked out of the house this morning and I said, kids, I'll see you after school for the final time of their school years. So they are still kicking in school here in Clinton, Mrs. Vogt. You are on week 2 of summer break. So how about that?
Yes. How about that? So, I think about just all of the various conversations we have throughout the year. And, earlier we talked about e-learning days versus traditional snow days. And so that plays into our students already having 2 full weeks out of school because the days that we took off, we used e-learning days. We've talked about our school calendar. We don't do a full week of spring break. We do a couple of days before Easter and the day after Easter. So yeah, our kids were done on May 16th. Teachers were done on May 19th. So it changes the whole feel of the building. We have about a dozen people who still work all summer long. There are a few, full-time employees that do 12 months, but then we also hire, we have 8 summer crew workers that we hire just as seasonal employees to come in and help out as well. So there are people in the building, but it's not a full building.
Gotcha.
And the feeling is just a little bit more relaxed. And what we're able to accomplish, it's incredible how much more you can get done with fewer interruptions.
Yeah, sure. Well, what's going on in your buildings this summer?
Yeah, so we're excited. We, our enrollment, we have had 1 class per grade level for a few years, and we have hired a second kindergarten teacher because we've doubled our kindergarten numbers coming in. And, a few people were asking why and what's going on. But if you think about it, it's 2025. 5 years ago, we had a pandemic and people spent a lot of time at home. And now we're seeing an increase in our enrollment. So, the correlation is there that there were more babies born 5 years ago. So we've hired a new teacher, and we're excited to add that kindergarten section, which then means building that classroom space, and a space that had been used as just a temporary office type space is now being converted back to a classroom, and furnishing it and making it ready for that new group of kindergartners.
How about that? Very good. Very good. So awesome. So a little TLC going on in your buildings. Is that a big investment to make those kinds of changes?
We were fairly ready for it. We have the furniture. We had already planned to put new technology into each of our classes. So adding 1 more class, it really wasn't, it's doesn't impact the budget that much to add 1 more. So for us, it was okay. We were ready for it. And what I love is when our elementary principal was telling the board that, we're going from 13 kindergartners to 26 kindergartners, the immediate response back in February was, then we need to hire a teacher. So I love that our board understands that young age group, it is best to have them in smaller classes.
Sure.
So, state average kindergarten numbers are over 20. But I love that our board understands that the best practice is to reduce the numbers. So Yeah, it is costing us a teacher salary, but we also have a couple of people retiring this year. So,
Mm.
um, those salaries with two new teachers coming in, it's okay.
Sure. Well, Mrs. Vogt, as we talk about the summer, I know the last several, I'll say, the focus has been catching students up from that kind of the learning loss of the pandemic. And I know you're only in year 2, so you kind of came in after everything had kind of subsided and things like that in Bement. But I'm just curious, where do you find your students? Do you still need summer programming for those things in Bement?
There were some after school programs and summer school programs that took place before I started in the district. And that first summer that I was there, they had not done any specific summer school for the middle school and elementary school students. But what we do is when there are high school students who need to do credit recovery, we do offer it's Apex Learning. It's an online self-paced learning program, and our guidance department oversees that and monitors the students and helps them through that. So any students who do need to make up for classes or have that credit recovery, we do have that opportunity for them. So
Mhm.
we provide them with the technology to use at home and make sure that they have the tools they need in order to pass those classes.
So that's not something you'll take on in terms of a summer program in Bement then?
No, it's pretty individualized. It might be two students who need to do an English class, two students who need to do a math class. So, by having the online programming available for them to do at their pace at home, then they're able to do the specific courses they need.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. Now, when it comes to those circumstances, do you have a teacher or a curriculum coordinator that maybe keeps track of their progress to check in on where they're at with that? That accountability piece. Who takes on that?
Absolutely. That's our guidance department. So they're able to, with it being an online program, they're able to access and see where the students are and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if the student needs a gentle nudge or reminder, then the guidance department contacts them to say, don't forget you should be this far along and helps them get there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Very good.
And
Now,
there
go ahead. Sorry.
there are tests also through the program. And so once the student has completed the instructional part, then they contact the guidance department who then like unlocks the test.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and to reflect a little bit here this morning, Mrs. Vogt, again, Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement School, is our guest on the Zoom today. To reflect a little bit as we wrap up school year 24-25, how are your kids doing out of the pandemic? We're several years removed from the real, the masking and the distancing and the learning from home and the e-learning. I know we get the e-learning for the snow days and things of that nature, but those are few and far between in the relative scheme of things. So it just in general, where do you find your students are at from an academic perspective, a social perspective, an emotional perspective? Where are your kids at with those things?
I feel like we're at that point where our younger students, as they're coming in, they're getting to experience normal school. And so, again, that preschool, kindergarten, first grade, they did not go to school during the pandemic. And so what we provide for them is all they know. I think some of the kids, that late elementary, middle school, early high school, for them, it's still, um, there are still some after effects of how do we handle, like you said, some of the social situations, because it's all foundational. What you learn as a early childhood student, you build on as then you get to be that upper elementary, middle school. And, right now our upper elementary and middle school students lost out on some of those foundational skills. So
Mhm.
just that teaching, reteaching, and helping to support them.
How about academically? How are kids doing?
Academically, I feel like the teachers have done a great job with recognizing who needed some additional support still. We're always going to have kids who need additional support. But coming out of the pandemic, there were more. So I feel like we're easing back towards what we would expect as far as students who do need the additional support. We have an intervention teacher and a teacher's assistant in her class who are just phenomenal, working with the classroom teachers, not only to provide additional support for students who need, just that extra guidance, but also some of the enrichment. And so students who are ready at their grade level and they're ready to be challenged and pushed farther, they work together collaboratively to make sure each student, we meet the student where they are and then push them further.
How about behaviorally? How are kids doing? Particularly those that were in, I think we probably graduated the freshmen this year that were, or the kids this year that were freshmen when everything got started. Maybe they were 8th grade. I'm not entirely positive. But we're starting to kind of filter through the kids that were, in the high school level now that were really at some very instrumental developmental stages, behaviorally, socially, those sorts of things. Kids kind of coming into the 5th and 6th grade, junior high ages. We're in some spots developmentally that were important, that they had to go through some unusual things. What are you seeing from your kids in Bement, Mrs. Vogt, as it relates to that?
Yeah, and I still think, it's interesting, just the structure and way schools operate. It's very, you have to ask to go to the bathroom, you go to lunch at a specific time. It's all very prescripted and scheduled. And then all of the sudden it was, nope, now you're home and it's up to you to make sure that you get online. It's up to you to make sure you get this work done. And kids could go to the bathroom whenever they wanted. They could just go grab a snack whenever they wanted. So then to come back into that very structured and prescripted atmosphere, there was pushback. Like, hey, it was a lot better when I could do all this at home. So I think that also is starting to even out some, just the understanding from not just students, but also staff, that, we had this expectation that these students would be able to do a lot of this on their own, with our guidance. Now we're expecting them to come back and lockstep, do the traditional school. So I think staff has also learned some flexibility, that, sometimes it's okay to offer different projects than always having, sit, lecture, and then regurgitate and memorize the information. Let them do some hands-on, let them do some creative thinking, and, just some of that we had to do because of the pandemic now is naturally being worked into the curriculum.
Sure. Well, Mrs. Vogt, on that note, anything we didn't touch on, I wanted to ask, and forgive me for kind of putting you on the spot with this one. I had Tony Kirkman from the Piatt County Mental Health Center on a few weeks ago, and he mentioned they were excited about a partnership that they were going to embark on with a couple of Piatt County schools for counseling in the school system and those sorts of things. I know Mr. Clapp told me up in Monticello they were a part of that. I didn't know if Bement had considered that, or where you landed on that.
Yeah, so Tony and I met about that, and it was right after we had started a partnership with the Regional Office of Education, Macon Piatt ROE 39. They provided us with a student liaison, full-time in our building Monday through Friday, starting in January. So what I had explained to Tony was, let's see how this works out. And, whoever would have guessed that I would be sitting here saying, gosh, we're fully staffed. I have a full-time high school guidance counselor. I have a full-time social worker. Now I have this liaison from the ROE, and the mental health center also wants to provide support. We do, it's called Cartwheel. It's an online mental health support for families. So, never would have guessed when I started this job back in 2022 that I would be saying, gosh, we just have all of these resources. It's phenomenal. But we have all of these resources and it's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. Very good. Well, Mrs. Vogt, I'll tell you what, let's break here. I don't know if you'll be doing much on social media or your website or whatnot during the summer months. You'll probably be keeping folks in tune with dates as the new school year approaches, with registration and all those things. Where do folks keep tabs on all of that good stuff?
www.bement.k12.il.us.
Mrs. Mary Vogt is the superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the Zoom. More to come with Mrs. Vogt on the morning show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Friday. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network. Corn, beans, and Chicago wheat starting the day lower. July corn opening 446 down a penny. September corn down a penny, 426 and a quarter. December corn 440 down 1 1/4. July beans opening 1046 and a quarter, down 5 3/4. August beans down 6 1/4, 1042 and a quarter. November new crop 1031 and a quarter, down 6. July wheat 533 3/4, down 1/4. September wheat 548 3/4, unchanged. December wheat down half a penny, 571. July bean meal 296.90, that's up 50 cents. July bean oil 47.18, down $1.21. Opening numbers on this Friday morning. I'm Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network.
Baum Chevrolet Buick offers full transportation options while giving you peace of mind. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton and Farmer City. This is what we strive to do each and every day. We'll listen to you, give you the options for routine maintenance, major mechanical problems, or collision repairs with a staff that is knowledgeable to find the best option for you. Baum Chevrolet Buick, your full-service dealer. See us at baumchevybuick.com right from the start.
If you've got allergies this season, we have relief. CEO Paul Scarron here from Warner Hospital and Health Services in Clinton. Come to our walk-in clinic inside our family medicine. No appointment, no problem. See our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Mrs. Mary Vogt is the superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the Zoom today. And Mrs. Vogt, as we chat here for this morning, I know that just in general, one thing you have come to appreciate about Bement and being in that community is just the tight-knit nature of the community, and in a way, not necessarily totally insulated, but to a degree, somewhat insulated from the challenges of bigger schools, and that's something you've kind of seen play out recently. How about that from your perspective? Tell me about that appreciation of that perspective.
Yeah, so first of all, coming into the superintendency, it is explained and reiterated, and just really new superintendents are told you need to have a positive relationship with your board. And so when I first started, one of the things I did was invited each of my board members either to have lunch or dinner, or one we went just for ice cream, just an opportunity to sit down, get to know each other a little bit better outside of the interview process. And, as much as, the responsibility of the superintendent is to run the district, that's what the board hires them to do. Ultimately, the 7-member board, they're in charge. And if a superintendent doesn't have a positive relationship with the board, then, come election time in April every couple of years, then it is worrisome, because if you do have large turnover on your board, then there's a chance that there might be some agendas out there where people's intention is to get rid of the superintendent and bring in their own leadership. So that's something that I appreciate about having the small community and the opportunity to really get to know the board, have the board get to know me. During board meetings, when there are discussions, there might be things that board members don't agree on, but they're able to talk about it and discuss it and see each other's point of view. And at the end of the night, when that meeting is done, they walk out and they're still friends and neighbors. So just there's the lack of hostility, and I appreciate being able to have people who are able to talk and communicate, and talk and communicate with me. I've talked to 4 of my 7 board members in the last week about just various things. Questions that have come up, things that I want to make sure that they're aware of. And, that's important to me. Just that the board knows that I am here to represent the community and the district, and, do what's best representing them, because that's the job they've hired me to do.
I was curious thinking about this in the last segment, and I feel like this is the appropriate time to ask it. Well, what are the dynamics of your district? Are there a lot of established families and individuals and, people invested in the school district and the community? Is it a lot of transient students, where you may have, many students, in and out of a class in a given year because they're moving or they're one place to the next, and Bement's just a stop along the way? How would you describe the dynamics of your district, Mrs. Vogt?
Yes to all of the above. We have students who, their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents have all come through the district. And then we have some that, it might be a foster placement where they're just with us for a few months. We have some where families have moved here to be close to other relatives, and so they're new to the community. We have one young man in high school who actually moved from Chicago suburbs to come care for his grandmother here. And so we have all of the above. But what, again, I appreciate is when new students and families move in, they're welcomed. And that's something that, doesn't always happen everywhere.
Sure. Well, to put a bow on the conversation, Mrs. Vogt, did we miss anything there that you wanted to put out there for us?
You always, when you ask that, I think, no, I don't have anything. And then as soon as I say I don't have anything, I come up with something. So, I just, again, having those positive relationships with the board and that open communication and understanding, they're my boss. So, I'm here to do the job that they've hired me to do.
Sure. Very good. Well, Mrs. Vogt, I'll tell you what, with that said, let's wrap up talking about the next school year, some important dates throughout the summer. Anything you want to put out on that realm?
Yep. We have online registration beginning on July 14th. So families will be receiving communication between now and then to give them directions to complete the online registration. And then we will also have a couple of days in August when our offices will be able to have people walk in and they can assist them if the families don't have the technology at home to complete the process.
Sure.
And then, just right around the corner, August 12th, we'll get teachers back in the building and get the next school year rolling.
It'll be here before we know it. Mrs. Vogt, I'll tell you what, you enjoy your summer. We will catch you closer to the start of school, if that sounds all right with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the Zoom. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton.
WHOW.